Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Dolphins Brawl. I am your host, Louis Sung, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Chad Ronenbaum. His hat is up backwards today, so he's just mixing it up a little bit.
Means it's warmer. I'm not wearing a stocking hat.
Is there a logo on the back, or is it just a regular old...
Yeah, it's Mustangs.
That's a high school team, so
okay,
most people will recognize it.
Is that where Mason's going to end up going one day? Is that the plan?
It is, yep. That is most likely where he will end up going to high school.
He's going to become the star quarterback there. Then he's going to get
I don't think he'll be a quarterback.
No quarterback?
No.
How come?
He wants to be a cornerback.
Really?
He likes Xavier Howard.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, please tell me he's going to turn out better than Minka when he gets recruited by Nick Saban, okay?
Well, he'll play wherever we tell him, I can tell you that. So he's already got that leg up on him.
Awesome. All right, so plenty to talk about. It's been a week. Another week has gone by. Another week of stuff to happen. So we got Carl Durrell coming up. We might touch on some drama that happened on Dolphins/Heat Twitter if we have some time. And we're also going to try to discuss some of the stuff going on with the Combine is coming up. We've got some quarterbacks we have to discuss where they're going to land and how it's going to impact everybody. So we're going to see how all this goes. Also, make sure you check out our sponsor, Fanatics, who is having a great deal on all sorts of sports memorabilia from the Brawl Network, so make sure you're keeping an eye on that. And okay, back to the show. So, I'm just going to go ahead and touch on this first because this is the most recent news that we have going on. So, Carl Durrell, formerly the Miami Dolphins wide receivers coach, recently promoted to the assistant head coach, is now deciding to up and leave Miami, and he's going to take a coaching job as the head coach in Colorado, which means that he's moving on to the college scene, which I can understand. He's really good with young kids. He's really good with kind of that kind of environment. He's good at being a leader in that regard. So, and now he's actually going to be a head coach. He's not going to be playing second banana to Brian Flores. So I can understand why he'd want to take that job. But the simple fact of the matter is that now, once again, the Dolphins are being left high and dry without a coach in that position. So the Dolphins are going to need a new wide receivers coach. They're going to need a new assistant head coach because now I don't think Jim Caldwell's coming back. And I'm kind of at a loss here, Chad, because it feels like more than half of Miami's coaching staff has now moved on to other opportunities, and I don't know how we should interpret that. If we should interpret that as people just really think that the Dolphins made a terrific coaching staff and they felt it was worth poaching, or if after the first year of Brian Flores' coaching tenure, they decided they didn't like what was happening and they decided to move on to other opportunities. So it's all speculative, but I don't know. I guess we have to have an opinion on it because I'm going to let you go first and then I'll see what I can weigh in on because, quite frankly, it's a bad look, I feel, either way, because we can't retain them, and it may have an impact on what the Dolphins do in 2020 and beyond. So I'll go ahead and let you get your thoughts out.
Well, I think it's concerning a little bit because last year the general consensus of the team was that they overachieved based on their roster talent, and so that would obviously be attributed to coaching. And as fans, we don't know who did what, in the development. Clearly, the wide receiver position with Durrell, the way Preston Williams came out of nowhere as an undrafted rookie, and the year Devontae Parker had, clearly he had to be impactful in that, and so it's not a good thing to lose him, but you also have to understand he's taking a head coaching job, at a major college, and so that's something that, if you were in that position, you may do the same thing. So I don't know that it reflects poorly on the Dolphins. Some of the other coaching turnover was, simply Flores swapping people out. I don't think he was happy with who he had where. And my best guess, this is obviously without any facts or even talking to anybody, but I think the Flores is very intense and he expects a lot out of his coaches. And I think he's made it pretty clear that if there's a position that's failing, he just doesn't cut players. He gets rid of coaches too. And so I kind of like that he holds the assistants accountable and that he just doesn't always blame it on the players if something isn't going right, because it's really a tale of both of it a lot of times. It's that they're not getting proper coaching to develop. So what that means for the season is hard to say. We've had a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. And as we were just saying before the show started, Lewis, we have practically a new coaching staff other than Flores coming in a lot of respects. I'm not too worried about the head coaching, or I should say the assistant head coaching positions. I think Chan Gailey will be able to probably serve in that capacity since he's been a head coach multiple times. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Flores replaces these guys. One of the things I noticed he's doing is he's relying more, I think, on Chan Gailey behind the scenes, and he's hiring more experience on the offensive side of the ball, and I think he's hiring younger assistants on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's mainly because of what his experience is. With that, the only other takeaway is if you want to, as a positive spin, I think part of this could be is that Brian Flores is held in very high regard by Chris Greer and I believe by Stephen Ross. And he just had a really good year, and I think he's pretty well respected around the league. And at his age, I think some of those assistants that they probably realize that Brian Flores is going to be the head coach for a long time. And so if you're looking to move vertically up the coaching chain, you're probably not going to be head coach at the Dolphins. And somebody like Carl Dorrell, where he's the assistant head coach, he's gotten pretty high, but he's switching over to a head coaching job. So that's what I take away from it right now, Lewis. Like I said, it's a little concerning because you just don't know what we're going to get in all the new turnover coming in. So, but at the same token, it seemed like Greer and Flores did a pretty good job in the last round. So at least we have somebody that I think we feel has a pretty good idea on what they're looking for in their assistant coaches.
Well, okay, so knowing what you just said, you know how last week we ended up going through some, as you called it, philosophical ramblings.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to start off early this time.
Okay.
Just throwing this out there, just thinking out loud. If what your goal is to eventually become higher up on the coaching chain, to become a head coach or whatever, wouldn't it be better served if you, as an assistant on the bottom of the coaching barrel, to actually find success with somebody who's looking to find some success? Because let's think of it this way. Carl Dorrell got a head coaching job. Okay, good for him. I get it. But there are other guys who they either got fired or they ended up just up and leaving. If they if they can see the way that we see it, that the Dolphins are going to be moving up, and you say that, well, Brian Flores is going to be the head coach for a long time, wouldn't that imply that means that the Dolphins are going to be a team of stability for quite some time, that they're going to be successful, and by their success, by proxy, you would be seen as an excellent coach because you are part of that? Even if you're not going to be held solely responsible for it, you do have some hand in their success, because Josh McDaniels gets interviews for head coaching jobs every single year, even though he still hasn't left the Patriots. Guys who have been coordinators. Hugh Jackson was the coordinator for a little while, and then he wound up getting another head coaching job. Well, not for Miami, but you get the idea. Just guys moving up because of success from other people, and not so much because, this other guy fails, so we're just going to stay in-house and hire this guy. That sort of mentality screams instant gratification, because it's like, I'm not going to get to be the head coach anytime soon, so I'm just going to go find somewhere else where somebody's going to suck, and then I can step in and be like, I have the answer. I don't know. That just feels like it's counterintuitive, because you want people to think that you're successful, not just take a risk and say, well, maybe he's got something.
I think that what you're saying is true probably in the vast majority of teams and organizations. I think the assistants want to have a feeling that the head coach is going to be there for a little while because they get stability. It's funny you mentioned Josh McDaniel, because he burned several assistants when he had it. And I think I don't remember the specifics, but he had taken the Indianapolis Colts job, was it a year or two ago, and then he backed out, after a week or two.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that Belichick blackmailed him into say, you leave, I'm going to kick your ass.
Well, whatever the circumstance was, he had actually lined up assistants that already had agreed to take positions in that staff, and then he left them hanging because the next coach coming in didn't necessarily want those assistants. And so I was just pointing out that I think there is a stability factor, but I think with what I was mentioning with Brian Flores is I think he's very demanding of his assistants, and so it all depends how confident you are, I would say, if you want to be an assistant with his staff, because I think he's has a really high level of expectations. I mean, we're talking about a guy that fired his offensive coordinator literally within a day or two after the season was over. And this was right after we had just pulled off beating the New England Patriots and looked pretty good, on offense. And he immediately, fired, what was it, a day or two when he fired O'Shea after the season was over. And so I think for an assistant standpoint, you're looking at it like, if my position group, or if you're an offensive defensive coordinator, if we are not having success, I might be fired within a year. And so I think Brian Flores has created a little bit of a culture where the coaches are just as accountable as the players. And so I would think if you're looking for a really stable position, you may not have that comfort zone if Flores is very quick to pull the trigger on getting rid of somebody. And that's something I don't have a lot of experience, because you don't see that a lot in the coaches. We went through the Philbin where he had to almost have his arm held behind his back to get rid of Mike Sherman. He didn't want to do it, and I think the GM owner basically made him get rid of him. And you get in those situations, whereas I don't think Flores is so much that way. He's very demanding, and so I think that's why some of them. A lot of it's just been kind of odd circumstances. I mean, I don't think you can fault Kevin Dorrell. I don't think that reflects poorly on our GM or on Flores, because he got a head coaching opportunity. And I think one thing Flores has shown is that he doesn't do things that I would say are underhanded in the league that you see. I'll use this as an example, since I don't like him. The way like the Jets handled Tim Tebow, for example. There are things you can do to people where like maybe you're going to let somebody go, and you block it as long as you can, and you let their window of opportunity kind of close out because you're trying to get maybe a late round pick for him or something like that. And Flores doesn't appear to be, you look at Minka Fitzpatrick, they could have easily refused to trade Minka and just said, suck it up, this is how it's going to be. And Flores was kind of like, look, if you don't want to be here, go. We'll work out a deal. And I think he did the same thing with, was it Graham that went to the Giants?
Graham, yeah.
And what was basically a parallel move. He didn't move up. He just took the same position with a different team. And it's because he wanted to be with that coach. He wanted to be with that organization. And so Flores was like, go ahead. I'm not going, because he absolutely had the ability to block that had he wanted to. And he let him do it. So I that's my general impression of Flores, is he has pretty good respect from the players and the coaches, that he's going to be fair with you. But he's also going to be very demanding. And so my hope is that, if you're looking to just have a comfortable 5-year job as an assistant with a new coach, you don't get that in Miami. Your unit needs to be performing well, prepared, and not making mistakes and developing, or you're going to be gone in a hurry. And so I would say he has a much higher level of accountability on his assistants than other head coaches do typically in the NFL.
So basically, there's a lack of being willing to bet on yourself. So in other words, cowards.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say confidence to a degree, but I mean, like, if you're taking a job, I understand both sides. Let's say you're moving to Miami and you've got a family, and you're moving from halfway across the country or something. You'd probably be a little nervous to know, like, look, if let's say I'm going to be a tight ends coach, and if my tight ends group isn't fundamentally blocking well and not performing up in the upper half of the league, I'm probably going to get fired.
And you're still going to make several $100,000, and you can go move somewhere else. Sheesh.
Right. But I'm just pointing out that's what I'm picking up out of Flores, is he's very demanding of his assistants, which I assume is a good thing, but I think it can make it hard to keep people retained. But I mean, let's look at the Belichick. I mean, how many coaches have come and gone through New England with Belichick? And
I really don't feel like it's been that many. Because if you think about the core names that you remember with the Patriots over the past 2 decades, Matt Patricia, McDaniels, and whoever happened to be before him, Dante Scarnecchia has been there since the dinosaurs, because he is one, but he's still the best in the business.
How about Romeo Crennel? He was a coach. Mm-hmm. He was coach of the Browns for a while. He was the defensive coordinator. I guess the point I'm making is that the assistants have gotten poached. I don't have a list here in front of me, Lewis, but several assistants have been poached, because that's what success does, is it gets your assistants poached. And I think for us, it's a little disconcerting because we're having turnover, like, more than you would like. But I think in part is because the team was actually pretty well coached last year. Maybe the first time in 2 decades, it appears we actually had pretty good coaching, development and strategy-wise. And so that's probably going to be the natural course of things at times, unless you got a really loyal assistant to a head coach, that they're going to take their opportunities. So it's my hope that this is a Brian Flores show, and he's really, really good at controlling everything. Because if the season last year was attributed to a lot of the assistants doing well, we could be in trouble because a lot of those people are gone.
And I think maybe that's where my real fear comes in, because as much as we talk about, oh, they want an instant gratification, they don't want to bet on themselves, they're cowards, they don't want to deal with it, the real fact of the matter is that, especially in the case of Carl Durrell, knowing how the wide receiver core came on, what is going to happen to this team now that this core of coaches that we were so proud of for 1 year has now been dispersed out into the league, and now we have, we're doing this whole song and dance again. So now it's, what's his name, Josh Boyer, who's the defensive coordinator, and he's a first-timer. And we have to find somebody to replace Carl Durrell, and I have my own little wish list of who that is who's going to replace him, and I think you probably saw the name pop up on Twitter already a few times, so you probably know who I'm thinking about. But it's like, what's going to happen to this team that they were already on such a roll with their development, and now all of a sudden we don't know how that's going to turn out anymore? Are we going to get thrown off the path because all these coaches who were, in all honesty, we can talk about the creative differences or whatever between Flores and O'Shea. We were happy with where the offense was going. So now we don't know again.
It's such a hard thing from a fan, and not even just a fan. I think anybody outside of the organization, it's tough to know what roles people have in the development and why people are successful, because what we do know is Devontae Parker had a career year for him,
and we know that.
Yeah, and we know Preston Williams developed really well too. Granted, he's a very talented player, but he was developed. He didn't. I don't think he walked into the clubhouse the first day. I think they really worked with him and got him to where he was. And who's involved in that, you don't know. It could be that having Ryan Fitzpatrick makes a big difference with those guys, and that's why they were so successful, because he was able to read the defenses and know when to get the ball. Or was it the coaches, working on fundamentals in practice on how to beat jams and how to run crisper routes and stuff like that? You really don't know. When things go well, you don't want change, and so we're in that situation where we are getting changed despite it appearing that. But last year we had a lot of young players, and we'll have young players this year, but it's going to be even more so the next two years, Louis, because if the draft plays out with drafting as many picks as we have, we're going to have a lot of young rookies on this team this season. And so this is going to be more important than ever that we have a coaching staff that can help prepare players for the NFL. That's going to be the real storyline behind the Dolphins. How well they do in 2020 is going to be how well the coaching staff can prepare rookies, because it's almost at any position. It's really hard to bring a rookie in out of college and make that jump to professional football right away. That tends to take time for a lot of people. And I think Miami historically has failed dramatically on that aspect of things. I don't think they've had good coaching development. And I think you've heard me say that before, Louis. A lot of people look at the NFL drafts and they like to label it as, well, the GM did a good job or he did a bad job based on how the players ended up, the outcome of them over 5 or 6 years or more. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the success players have over that time is how well they were coached and helped to adapt to the NFL. And that is nervous. It makes you nervous because we have a lot of different coaches in here, and so you're hoping that you're really relying on Chris Grier, Chan Gailey, and Brian Flores to know how to identify good assistants and how to put together a structure that allows the assistants to help these players develop. Because if that's not there, you're going to see it. And we've been through some bad assistants here, so hopefully we've got that turned around with this new group. That's what our situation is.
I'm going to go ahead and say the offensive line coach scares me more than anything else, because like you said, we've had some stories to tell, more so there than anywhere else. Jim Turner, Chris Forster. Yeah. Oh my God, man.
Yeah, we've had some bad runs, and honestly, probably more maybe ever than in team history. That's going to be huge this year, because I think right now, this is no respect to Jesse Davis, but I don't know that he's even a starting caliber offensive lineman on a lot of teams in this league. He's probably borderline. He's a decent offensive lineman.
He's a spot starter. That's what he is.
But this team's probably going to need to look at maybe even 3 to 4 probably new offensive linemen are going to have to come in this year. This is why I've been preaching. I think we're going to have to go get some veterans in free agency because we're going to need to draft offensive linemen. We're going to need to develop offensive linemen, and we're going to need to rely on young offensive linemen to perform well for this team to have success. Because it's just of everything gone. To me, that's the glaring need right now. This team really struggled. It's amazing how well we did last year, considering we had 0 running game, like non-existent. Like 1-2 yard carries is all we're getting, and we were still able to score points. And so that's completely. I know a lot of people are anti Kalen Ballage, and we need to go as running backs. I don't even think you can really give them too good of evaluation because the line in front of them was probably even more poor than the job they were doing. And so that's probably no other position coach right now on the team is more important than our offensive line coach, Lewis. So that is scary. You're right, because we have a history of some really bad offensive line coaches, and now we need a really good one more than we ever have.
I will agree with you on the OL coach being the most important thing. I will continue to disagree with you on the Ballage aspect of it because I know that nobody really had a whole lot of success, but again, let's be fair. Mark Walton did pretty good. Patrick Laird did good in his limited time. Ballage looked bad 24/7.
No, that's fair. I guess, to be clear, I'm not claiming I think Ballage should be our featured back next year. I was just making the point it's hard to even evaluate the backs when we had very little push up front in the run game.
True.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, you did get a good sample of, running backs got to be able to create at times on their own, and he was not successful at doing that this season.
Yeah. So, real briefly, as far as replacing Carl Darrell, like I said, my wish list, I think that this would be the best thing ever, and I know a lot of people will make memes about it if it ever happened, but let's be real. Ohio State, Brian Hartline has done an amazing job with the wide receivers up there. I would not be upset if he became a coach in Miami.
Do you know, is he actually in consideration, or is that just a name you're throwing out?
It's just a name I'm throwing out. Okay. That's what I've seen a lot of people say. That's what they want to happen, because if we're like, this is what I was saying during the coaching search before all these names got hired. If you're gonna go out there, go and get the best guys you can get your hands on. And right now, Hartline is the cream of the crop, and it can't hurt to be like, you want to come back home to Miami or no?
Well, I like. This is just what I've noticed by observation, not know anything beyond just observation. Former players tend to be really good positional coaches.
Sam Madison.
Yeah, I mean, I was with you all on that. Why was Sam Madison not? They just didn't really want to pay attention to him, like during the Gaze time. And you're talking about a guy who was an All-Pro corner for years in the NFL,
and you had him just blabbing on the Finsiders and stuff instead of actually doing coaching stuff.
Out of the studio, get him on the field, and start teaching defensive backs. But Hartline. Anyway, my point was, the assistant players tend to make really good assistants, and they tend to make poor head coaches, because head coaches is a lot more about politics and managing a whole group of the psychology and the demeanor of the team and discipline and all of that stuff. But when you get into the positional coaches, it's very fundamental, and you get a player that's been in the league for several years. They know exactly the fundamentals that you have to learn, and they understand how to use those fundamentals to succeed at the level. And I really like guys like Brian Hartline, because you could take an example like a Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson. I don't know how good of coaches guys like that are, because they were so ridiculously talented in the NFL. So I like to see guys like Brian Hartline, because he was not that big of a receiver. He was not that fast of a receiver. Like, if you lined him up against all the receivers in the NFL, he's probably below average in height, size, and speed.
He made do with effort.
But he was a successful wide receiver in the NFL. And that, to me, means that was upstairs, that he understood how to read defenses. He understood how to run routes. And that's the exact kind of guy you want trying to help your receivers. So I'd be all for that.
And it's not even a guess. We've seen what he does as the coach. It's not he might be good. No, he is good. We know that for a fact.
Yeah. And I remember the interviews. Brian Hartline's a smart guy. So I'd be interested in that. And I loved, when Tannehill in his first few years, Brian Hartline ran
the 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, he ran that route though. He could paint that sideline and catch the ball, right at the sideline on an out. It's nearly impossible to defend when you run that right. And so I haven't really seen a receiver on our team that's run it that well since. And so that's something when we have the talent level. Our receivers right now are ridiculously talented. When you have a healthy Devontae Parker and Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki, when you throw those three together in the red zone, that's extremely difficult to defend because they're tall, they're fast, and if we can get those guys running good, crisp routes, that would be
unstoppable.
Very difficult.
That would become like one of the best wide receiver cores in football.
And to me, that's where we're at right now because there's no doubt you can send Devontae Parker or Preston Williams on a go route right now and just throw it up, and probably 50% of the time they're just going to come up and make a highlight catch just with their pure talent. But if you can get those guys, doing stuff like Larry Fitzgerald, where you can run those really clean routes, they become really, really difficult to stop then. And when you got several of them, several different players you can spread out like that are really, really hard to stop one-on-one, and suddenly you have a potent passing attack. And so, yeah, that wide receiver coach is important because, even though it's not like the offensive line list, we're going to probably have to have 2 or 3 rookies playing. We're going to have a veteran group of wide receivers now, but I think there still is a lot of room for development and ceilings to reach yet in that group.
I'm just really hoping that one day the Dolphins will kind of look back and see just what kind of an alumni class they have waiting in the wings. I don't know. I'm willing to guess that like 80% of them are not even remotely interested in coaching, which is fine. I'm not saying that. But you see the guys that we have available, and we know that they're there because they're always around. We don't see that a lot with other teams. Like, you have Troy Drayton, who is one of the better-known tight ends in Dolphins' recent history, who he was even willing. We were talking during a high school all-star game. I was covering it, and he basically lined up with me and showed me this is how you're supposed to do blocking stuff with both hands, because Jimmy Johnson made sure that I did with both hands, because you couldn't just do one hand in blocking. You had to be able to line up on either hand. And that's the kind of fundamentals that he still knows it. He can still teach it. He tried to teach me, and I'm I'm nowhere near a football player by any means, but he knew it and he could help me to understand it. If he could just get the guys like Gesicki and Smythe and anybody else who's in there to learn it, then that would make him a really good tight end coach, and he has that kind of personality in him. Troy is a very upbeat, energetic guy. He knows what he's doing. Sam, before he left to go to Kansas City, again, you said it, all pro corner. He coached other stuff while he was here. He wasn't like professional as in like the sense that he was a college coach or anything like that. He taught like small ball, high school, pee-wee, that sort of thing. But it's the same mentality. You still have to teach these guys, and Sam knows what he's doing, hence why he's now a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's still so many. Ronnie Brown is hanging around as a running back with the team. What else do we got? We've got more tight ends hanging around. We have offensive line guys hanging around.
Right. No, like I said, a lot of times the players make good. And I like to look at players that were successful on the way they mentally approached the game to be coaches. And, one player, he's obviously been in the New South Hall of Fame, it was Zach Thomas. I don't know. Well, I don't know if people realize like how much film work or how prepared he was, and I've never seen it since. It's almost like I'd like to tell people, go back and watch some of the Zach Thomas games when he was playing against Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and you would see the quarterbacks come up and audible, and then Zach Thomas would audible, and you would hear him yelling out the plays, and he put so much time in to learning how to read what the offense was doing, and that was a huge part of why he was so successful. He wasn't this super, super talented linebacker. He was talented, but a lot of his success was over how he prepared for the game. And so you want those guys. Another guy I'd love to have when he does retire is Cameron Wake. If you ever hear Cameron, he's a very smart guy, and he's not just. It isn't always just fundamental. Like, here's how you do a swim move sort of thing. It's like Cameron Wake knows how to keep his body physically together to survive a football season. A lot of that Devontae Parker stuff, the frustration wasn't on his talent or his, he had a great personality. It was like, dude, you got to eat right. You've got to train right.
Stop eating Fruit Loops for breakfast.
Well, and that's where guys like Cam Wake, they can, it's not just about, all technique on defense, and he can help you in a lot of different ways because look how long he was able to succeed.
You and I have seen Cameron Wake's little area in the kitchen and what he...
Yeah, how particular he was. Yeah, but those are guys that are like that I like to get because I think they offer a lot that they can help young players develop with that. And at times they've had them in there. I remember they had Jason Taylor come in and work with Deion Jordan, which... I think that was the case if you can't fix stupid, but he tried, but getting the alumni in, I don't think is ever a bad thing. And I don't think there's any limit on how many coaches you can have anyway. So, you take somebody like Troy Drayton, I don't know that Troy would be, in tune with the way the tight ends are used today because when he played tight end, there was a much, much more heavier emphasis on blocking.
No, that's true, but believe me, remember, he told us both he hated having to block. He wanted to catch passes.
When he played, you didn't have a choice. You can get guys like Kelsey in today's NFL that they can block somewhat, but they're so good at the offensive receiving part of the game that they do a lot more pass catching than they do blocking. But Troy Drayton is somebody you see a guy like that, why wouldn't you have him in especially early on in training camp to work with a rookie or a young tight end on blocking fundamentals because he would really be good at that. I don't know. You have to assume that the coaches in there know what they're doing too. But the alumni are. I'm always a big fan of, and not just the team alumni. Anybody that's been in the NFL that has several years as a player that had success that is really, really astute at paying attention to the mental aspect of it would be. Always a good thing to get, in my opinion.
I'm just imagining now. It's honestly making me want to drool a little bit. Could you imagine Raekwon McMillan taught one-on-one by Zach Thomas and maybe whoever we draft as the next pass rusher to be one-on-one tutored by Jason Taylor and them? That's the dream team right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see our linebacking core. Zach Thomas is in there helping them study film and teach them how to study film because he was so good at it, what he could accomplish. But, that's, again, you have no idea what Zach Thomas wants to do. Right?
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it's 80% of the alumni probably don't even want to do it. But it's it's just, man, there's so much untapped potential. It's tough
when you see somebody like Sam Madison having success and knowing he would have come into Miami and done that when he was here. And now he's off doing it for another team right now. But, is what it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, so... that's probably going to be at the topic we'll have to revisit someday. It's just kind of we'll have to get Ron in here or something, and we'll just make our little alumni dream team coaching staff. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the Combine stuff. So you were bringing that up. So Combine's coming up. A lot of prospects we're going to be looking at. I'm sure that the quarterbacks will be very heavily emphasized for Miami. Offensive linemen, too, because, again, that's a really big deal. Everything else kind of bonus because really that's the main things. We know we've been saying all this time that the Dolphins have holes everywhere, but if we're being honest about it, quarterback, offensive line, if those two things don't get fixed, nothing else matters. So,
I don't know if that's the offensive line for sure. I think right now that's a misconception right now that Miami's absolutely has to take a quarterback because, Ryan Fitzpatrick is back. He's going to be the starter almost for sure no matter what happens. And Rosen is back. And so this isn't a situation where...
At this point, Rosen is the developmental quarterback, if you ask me.
Right, but I guess when I look at the team, we absolutely need another boundary corner. We absolutely need another interior defensive tackle. We absolutely need some pass rushing defensive ends. And those things are almost higher priority to me than quarterback right now. But at the same... So you get that token mixed in with you can't. You need to get a franchise quarterback, and yeah, you do. But I guess right now with the fan base, it is so crazy right now about quarterbacks, and I think people might get. I don't know that that's Miami's highest priority right now. I don't know that there's a prospect out there that's just an obvious can't miss prospect, and you don't see those very often at quarterback. But I don't think there's one in this draft right now, and I still. This is just my opinion, obviously, but there's only been two prospects that have come out where it was really clear they were going to be very good, and that was Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. And
Are you going to count Trevor Lawrence in that pile? Can he comes tomorrow or next year?
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a good prospect, but he isn't somebody that is like an Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning where he's ready to start in the NFL right away. And again, it's a higher failure rate than other positions. The quarterback position is, and I personally look at it as about a 25% chance that quarterback's not going to make it more than 3 or 4 years and be able to handle the complexity and the speed of the NFL. And I don't think there's any real way to judge how they're going to handle that aspect, the complexity and the speed of the game. They can have great arms, great mobilities, but it's a little bit of a coin flip. And we agree, Lewis, that I think you always want to continue to try to get that franchise quarterback. You don't ever just settle not having one. But I'm just, which because I've been reiterating this for the last few weeks, I am not a fan of trading up or trading a lot of assets to move up. Now, if we trade a second-round pick to go, from 5 to 3, or maybe we trade our 26th-round pick to move up and get Tua or Burrow because we really feel like that's the guy. I can understand that move, but the reports that we're going to trade 3 number 1 picks to go from 5 to 1, I mean that's ridiculous and it's crazy. I don't believe the team's going to do that. In terms of the combine, it is going to be pretty tightly watched because I think there's still some uncertainty out there because right now it's an interesting mix right now that we have at quarterback. So we've got Burrow, who had one of the best college seasons ever and won the national championship, and extremely accurate all year, much higher accuracy than you normally would see with the quarterback. And so that, obviously that has him as number 1 prospect, but you've only got a 1-year sample size and he was on a really good team. And so that makes it hard to get a real good judge of him after just 1 year on a really good team. And then you've got Herbert, who to me is the most physically gifted of the class. He's got a really big arm. He's got a really big body. He's pretty athletic, but he's had some accuracy issues at times. And so that makes you a little nervous. And so the combine's a big day for him because you're going to be watching all those routes he throws and try to get a feel for where he's placing the football on those routes. If he performs really well, Herbert, people would think I'm crazy, still has the potential to move all the way up to number 1 overall. I really believe that because I think he's got a bigger arm than the other prospects right now. And then you get Tua in there, who had a really good college career, throughout his whole college career. Has those intangibles off the chart. I love the ball Tua throws, like the spirally throws. I love his accuracy. His leadership's really good. But then you got the injury mixed in there, and you're not going to get a really good answer. The combine's going to be more about him doing political, like he's going to be meeting with teams and selling them on his personality. But you're not going to see Tua do the things you're worried about, like how's he doing a shuffle drill? How fast is he in the 40? He's not physically going to be able to do that, and so you kind of got those mixed in there. And so the combine, this season in particular, you could see those quarterbacks move up and down quite a bit on where they'll get drafted based off how that combine goes for them. Beyond the rookies and all of that, this is where the unofficial free agency starts, is in the combine. And I don't think there's any name bigger right now other than Tom Brady because I hear a lot of different people think different things of whether or not he's returning to New England. I think the New England faithful are convinced he's coming back to New England, but what I'm seeing right now is Tom Brady's clearly waiting. Like if Tom Brady was clearly returning to the New England Patriots, would agree to a new contract. They would have gotten it over with already, yeah. But it's not done, and so that tells me New England at most right now has taken the position that they're going to see what he gets offered, and so what Tom Brady has decided he wants to talk to other teams first. New England's in a position where they're going to be waiting to see what other teams offer Tom Brady. I've been saying all along, I'm pretty confident that the San Diego Chargers are going to make a really hard run, but the Raiders have been in the news this week. They've already offered him behind the scenes $30 million a year over 2 years, like basically $30 million this year and $30 million next year. To come be their quarterback to kick it off in Las Vegas, which also makes some sense if you're coming into a new city. But the combine is Tom Brady won't be there, but Tom Brady's agent will be at the combine, and Tom Brady's agent will be talking to other teams. And after the combine is over, Tom Brady will know financially what other teams are going to offer him when March 18th gets here. And so I think once the combine's over, if Tom Brady hasn't signed up with the New England Patriots back within a week or two after the combine, if you're a Patriots fan, you should be pretty nervous, because that's telling me that Tom Brady's decided to wait until free agency and he's going to be going out to meet with those teams because the financial offer has been very attractive to him. And so that's something I think to watch post-combine is seeing what happens. And the other factor right now going on is the collective bargaining agreement. That's put everything on hold in terms of franchise taking people. So that's going to happen around the same time as the combine as well. Like, are the Cowboys going to franchise tag Dak Prescott, for example? And the reason I'm bringing that all up is the riddle of what the Dolphins are going to do at quarterback. And, all the people out there are like, well, the Chargers are going to make a run at Tua, or the Panthers are going to make a run at Tua, or Burrow, or Herbert, whoever. And you're going to have an answer on several of those teams what they're going to do, because they're not going to have the luxury to wait if they decided not to go with a rookie this year. And right now the Chargers don't really have a starting quarterback. And one other thing I'm interested in with the Chargers is what is their opinion of Easton Stick? They just drafted him last year, and that'd be an interesting question if there's any Chargers fans out there listening to this, or anybody that's talking much to Charger fans, is how high are they on Easton Stick? Because if they have some feel for him having potential, then I don't think they're going to be that interested in drafting a rookie quarterback. I think they're way more interested in going after a veteran. And so where these people all start to fall out is going to impact how that draft's going to go. Because if let's say you pay Tom Brady $30 million a year if you're the Chargers, are you then going to turn around and use the 6th overall pick? Or are you going to try to trade up in front of the Dolphins to get a rookie and not give Tom Brady the assets he needs to try to win right now?
Well, you know what, Chad? The more that I think about it, and really it just came to me, we've been talking about the Lions all this time, about how they can't afford to wait around for Tua to get better, and that they have to win now, otherwise their jobs are on the line and all that stuff.
Right.
But if you are a team like, let's say, the Buccaneers, who apparently are really looking hard at Phillip Rivers, or like I read a report that says, oh, it's a done deal, they just have to wait for it to happen, or whatever.
I agree with that.
Or
that's why I have it.
Or again, Brady going to the Raiders or the Chargers or wherever. If you're a coach who's looking to find success, and by the way, sustained success, it's pretty much understood that signing Rivers or Brady is not going to get you 5 years of head coaching security. However, if you sign a Brady, that gives you an extra 2-year window, and it makes drafting someone like Tua suddenly viable, because everybody knows that Tua can't play, and nobody is unseating Tom Brady as the starter, not even Tua, even if he was healthy.
Right. But what so you can make the move to sign Brady, right? And so you're convincing the owner that we want to sign a 43-year-old quarterback, and we want to pay him $30 million a year. And my guess is by the time Tom Brady does his little tour and the bidding war starts, he's going to get more like 35 to 36 million. And so you're going to give a huge cap number to Tom Brady. If you're doing that, your intention is to try to make a run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's fine, but that keeps you as the coach alive while Tua prepares to take over for when Brady does eventually retire.
What keeps you alive as a coach is winning. To be clear on that one, you've got to win. So if you sign Tom Brady and you don't make the playoffs, your chance of getting fired is going up dramatically.
Well, that's fair, but that's what I'm saying is, what are the chances you don't make the playoffs if Tom Brady's your quarterback?
Well, it depends that's my point. So if you put the money into Tom Brady and you're going to make a run at it, I'm using the Chargers as an example. So your head coach is Anthony Lynn, I believe, for the Chargers. And his seat has been getting a little bit hotter because they were expected to compete for the West this year, and they did not. They just were not that competitive. And so the belief right now is the Chargers have a fairly talented team. So if you bring in Tom Brady, like I said, you're going to probably get fired if you bring in Tom Brady and you don't make the playoffs. And so if you have the 6th overall pick, you can pick up a really good offensive tackle. You can pick up a really good defensive tackle. There's some really good players there that are going to help you day one of the 2020 season win. If you grab Tua, you're grabbing Tom Brady, but you're not giving him the protection up front, or you're not giving him the skill player that he needs to try to get you not only to the playoffs, but competitive in the playoffs. And so I think it's hard to go grab Brady and go grab the rookie quarterback. What you're saying makes sense, Lewis, I think, if you're a new coach. But that's not the case, with the Chargers. I just don't see it. And the same thing with the Lions. I think the Lions, they want to trade down pretty badly because I think Matt Patricia, this may be his final year, his head coach of the Lions, if he doesn't make the playoffs this year. And
right, that's why I didn't use the Lions as the head example. Like, Stafford's not good enough to, prove that nobody can unseat him. That's why I had to use literally Brady as the example.
Right. But, that idea makes sense, Lewis, I think, for somebody like the Panthers. So that's the team that I'm watching because that's another storyline right now is Cam Newton is open to take physicals now. So if you're a team that's interested in acquiring Cam Newton, you can bring him in right now and you can give him a physical with your own medical team. And the Panthers basically are saying that Cam Newton is healthy. But the rumor right now is the Panthers want to start with the new coach. They want to start with a new quarterback, and so they want to move Cam Newton, who has a relatively affordable cap number for a quarterback. I think he's about $20 million. If Cam Newton's healthy, he's had a very successful career, and so those moves have to happen all over the course of probably the next 2 to 3 weeks. And when those do happen, you got to start paying attention to these moves because it directly is going to give the Dolphins a lot more clarity on who they need to think about in the draft. But all this talk right now is Miami needs to move up, Miami needs to move up. But, when you have a guy like Chase Young in the draft and that quarterback from Ohio State is Okuda, I'm not quite sure. He's very, very good prospect. There's a really good prospect at D-tackle from Auburn. And these guys are who these teams want. I mean, look, because those teams impact you right away. And I don't think you're going to see teams flying up there to take Tua, who really needs probably a redshirt year to get healthy, or are they going to fly up there and take Herbert? I just don't think that's happening right now with where the teams are located at. And, I kind of went through the charts. And this free agency class is loaded relative to other years at quarterback right now. I mean, we've got guys out there. So you got the Brady situation. You've got Jameis Winston in this mix. You've got Teddy Bridgewater, Phillip Rivers. I mean, when's the last time you had two multiple Pro Bowl quarterbacks? Like you have Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady, and you have Phillip Rivers, who's been to multiple Pro Bowls. Those are both quarterbacks you can sign right now that can start for your football team.
Wasn't there someone else available that 1 year Peyton shook free? I feel like there was. I'm not sure.
Can't remember that. I have to look that up. Andy Dalton's probably going to be available if the Bengals do take Burrow. Is Andy Dalton a great quarterback? No, but is he a quarterback that can come in and start right now? Yes. So he's in the mix right now as a quarterback. Marcus Mariota is going to be available. So
I can't imagine Mario. I agree that he's there, but I really don't think there's going to be a lot of teams pushing to sign the guy that just got upended by Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I kind of have a prediction after this. I think the Patriots are not. I don't believe Tom Brady's returning to New England. I think that's very unlikely right now. And so I think Stidham has shown pretty good potential in the limited amount that he played. And so I don't see why the Patriots with him on the team would be all gung-ho to go grab a rookie. I think they're going to grab another quarterback to go with him. And I think the Patriots are where Mariota is going to go. I think he'll go to New England. They'll probably get him on a reasonable deal, and it'll be him and Stidham for their two quarterbacks this year. I have Brady going to the Chargers with Stick developing under him. Again, that's an important question right now. If you're the Dolphins, is what do the Chargers think of Easton Stick? Because where did they draft him last year? Was it around the 4th round?
No, it was way longer than that. I think it was almost near the doggone 7th round.
Oh, was it? Oh, so maybe they're not that high on him. I don't know that right now. But if the Chargers like Easton Stick and they bring in they're going to have to bring in a top veteran. And so if it's not Tom Brady, I don't know which direction that.
No,
Honestly,
it was round 5. Sorry, my fault. Right, it was round 5.
yeah. So where he fits in at is an important question since he's so young. I think Jameis Winston I have going to the Steelers to back up Big Ben. Maybe people disagree with that, but
There are some reports that the Bears are looking at him with Mitchell Trubisky in the mix.
I don't see the Bears. I know there's a lot of Bears fans that don't want Mitchell Trubisky, but I don't see how, after the Bears gave up that much to get him, that they give up on him right now. Man, if the Bears do and Trubisky ends up, in a year or two, really turning it up and getting this picked up, could you imagine how bad that would be for him? But I don't see the Bears moving on from Trubisky. They might want to bring in a Winston to work with him, but the reason I like the Steelers is Mason Rudolph is not that impressive to me, and I don't know how comfortable they are with him as their backup right
Ben's
now.
coming back.
No, I agree, but Big Ben's coming back with a lot of injuries right now. And so what the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have is a first-round pick because we have that. And so getting a guy like Jameis Winston is a guy that's young yet. I don't know. He's probably in his late 20s, I'm guessing, Jameis Winston is. Mm-hmm. And so he's a guy you can get without giving up a draft pick that still has some potential to put behind Brady. I do believe Jameis Winston would be an upgrade over Mason Rudolph for him, and they could get him without losing a draft pick. I think the Colts are going to make a move for somebody. I don't think they're going to set with Brissett after this last year. I've got the Colts going after Herbert. Maybe they'll go after Tua, but I think they want Herbert more. That's where I pick, really making a hard move. And don't be shocked, as Dolphin fans, I think the people would freak out if Miami's at 5 and they trade back with the Colts. Don't be shocked. Just pointing that out right now. I think the Bucs to Rivers, I think that's really true, Lewis. I think Rivers is going to start for the Bucs. And I kind of put Bridgewater with Rivers as the quarterback to go with him for Tampa. I don't think Bridgewater is going to stay with the Saints now that Brees is coming back.
No way. I can't. Man, I get it, but I don't see it because that would mean trading one stuck as a backup position for another. Because you really think that they're going to sign Phillip Rivers and not make him the starter over Bridgewater? Bridgewater would basically be trading, since Drew Brees is here in New Orleans, I guess I'll go be the backup to Phillip Rivers instead. I don't think.
No, that's just me throwing it. But I don't think Bridgewater is going to get a free starting spot. I think he's going to have to be with another quarterback, and so I just put him with Rivers. With that making sense. The other guy to watch maybe for the Bucs would be Love. Getting drafted, Jordan Love.
True.
Be behind Rivers would make some sense with where they're picking at in the draft anyway. I have the Love going to the Falcons right now because I think there's some rumbles there. Yeah, Matt Ryan's been good, not great for a long time, and so I could see them because I'm kind of pegging Love to be one of these teams in the second half of the draft. Maybe the late teens to early 20s. Teams picking in there that might want a young quarterback to put behind their current, so that would make sense to me. And I have Andy Dalton going to the Washington Redskins. I think Haskins obviously is pegged to be their starter, but he has a long ways to go from what I've been reading and seeing. Great talent, but I just don't know that he's ready for the NFL for a full season.
He needs more cooking time.
Yeah, and so I think you want to go get a veteran quarterback, and Andy Dalton would be a guy who could step in and play all year if he had to for the Redskins, but I don't think Andy Dalton would be a bad guy to hold the clipboard if he need be either. So those are just some movements. But, as those play out, that gives you a pretty good idea. Because if the Chargers grab Brady and if the Panthers fail to move Cam Newton, I think it's going to be hard for the Panthers to go get a high-profile rookie if they keep Cam Newton. It's not that they can't, but I don't see that being the case. So if they get Cam Newton traded, that's a team to be really worried about in terms of Tua would be the Panthers because they have a brand-new coach. They can make that move to say, you know what, we're going to go get Tua because we're looking at having him in a year or two as our quarterback. They can make that happen, and they could go get a Bridgewater or somebody like that to start for him right now. So that'll be a team to watch. But I think if you're really, really big on Tua, the teams to be most worried about are the Colts and the Panthers. I don't think you need to be too worried about the Chargers. Personally, I just don't think the coach has the security to do it. And I know the Colts with Jim Irsay, the up there making calls, he loves high-profile quarterbacks. And so it wouldn't shock me if they make a run at him. And I think they're picking like 12 or 13 or somewhere in there.
Can I make a slightly off-topic observation? And
Yeah.
I don't know how much of an impact it really would make, but it is something to consider.
Sure.
In the case of Carolina specifically, Tua would be a really easy sell in the Bible Belt.
Oh yeah, like I said, Carolina makes a lot of sense for Tua. Now, if you're a team, who are they going to move up with? But I think they're the 7th.
Yes.
They're pretty high, so they have a high enough pick. Like when I look at the Colts, I'm like, the Colts would have to trade substantially more than the Dolphins would to move up. Because if you're a team like the Lions want a really solid player right now, and you can feel pretty comfortable to swap with the Dolphins and take less. You know, let's say the Colts are offering you the 12th overall pick, and they're offering you like a second and a third. And Miami's just offering you a second and their first. You'd probably rather have the 5th overall from Miami and just take that extra second and then still get the player you want. The Carolina at 7, really the team I would be most concerned about would be Washington. And so I'm interested to see if they're going to retain their tackle. What is his name?
Trent Williams.
Trent Williams. If Trent Williams leaves Washington, we need to be kind of worried because there's probably 3 or 4 really good offensive tackle prospects in this draft. And you can probably fall back anywhere in front of 5 to 10 range and get a really good offensive tackle prospect. And that's something the Redskins need. And so I think honestly, all these teams right now are open for business for a trade up. I think the Redskins really want to get out of there because like their lowest positional need probably is defensive line right now. And so I don't know how excited the Redskins are to draft Chase Young. He's a great athlete and probably an immediate potential Pro Bowl starter, but when you have a pretty good defensive line, how much better are the Redskins going to get if they draft Chase Young? I mean, they probably don't get a lot better.
They could always trade off an asset, get some more picks for next year.
Well, that would mean them trading off, Kerrigan or somebody like that. But I'm just saying, I think the Redskins probably, especially if Trent Williams leaves, they want to get one of those top tackles, and they can easily drop back to like 7 with the Panthers and still get a top tackle. And if the Panthers are willing to throw out like a couple number 1s or something like that, they may get that deal done to move up with the Redskins. But all that considers how comfortable people are with Tua's health. And so I still think right now, this is my prediction of what's really going on behind the scenes. I think about half the teams have Herbert number 1, and half the teams probably have Burrow number 1. And I think probably half to 3/4 of the teams right now don't even have Tua on their board. And it isn't because of what Tua did. It's because, one is he's unorthodox. And I mean, by unorthodox, I mean he's a lefty. He's not really tall, and he's not super mobile. And so you're looking at a quarterback that isn't – usually you want a really athletic quarterback, or you want a big, tall quarterback with a big arm. And that's not Tua. What's really good about Tua is his intangibles more than anything to me. And so I think that's something teams with the injury and being a lefty, I just don't know if they want to mess with that right now. For what it's going to cost to get Tua, he's going to be a top 10 pick. I don't believe Tua is going to fall, but I don't know that teams are willing to pay that price for him, and so that's why I think 3/4 of teams don't even have Tua on their board. And I think that somebody's going to trade up, maybe in front of Miami, to go after Herbert. That's really what I'm anticipating happening.
Well, if they move up for Herbert, then I think most of Dolphins fandom will be very happy if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Herbert's. He's got I've watched the film on him lately. He's got a really nice arm. He's big. Is
it really just because he's boring, Chad? Is that what it is? Because that's what most people said, is that Herbert just doesn't make you excited.
I don't know. He looks pretty good to me, but I think he just didn't play. Tua and Burrow get so much publicity because they were on really, really successful teams.
And there are a lot of highlight reel plays.
Well, and you just look at the players that Tua got to play with while he was there. I mean, wow. I mean, a lot of NFL players. And look at that LSU team that Burrow got to play with. And so it's easy to look good when your guys are bigger and faster than everybody you're playing. And so I think that's why people always attribute how a team does to an individual. And football is such a team sport that's easy to lose. But I just don't think Herbert had the team that those two had. And so, I mean, that would be an interesting question you can never see. But what happens if you put Herbert on LSU this year? Like, how does Herbert look on that team with the players that Burrow had around him? And so that's an interesting question. All I know is historically, a lot of high-profile quarterbacks can't handle the transition to the NFL, and a lot of the all-time greats were not the first or second quarterback even taken. I mean, we should all see that with Ryan Tannehill with that draft. I mean, look at Andrew Luck was the most surefire prospect since Peyton Manning in that draft, and look what the
AFC Championship.
I know, and look what the Redskins gave up to go get RG3. And so I look at all this hype around Tua right now. Look, RG3 ran a 4.4, had a really good arm, really good college success.
His rookie season was pretty darn impressive. Well, but then he fell apart, literally.
Highly coveted. And so he goes second overall. Then Tannehill goes, and then was it Whedon or somebody the Browns took? I can't remember. But
yeah, Brandon Whedon.
But Russell Wilson goes in the second round, and he's been the best of all of them by far of that draft class. And, obviously everybody knows Tom Brady's story. Everybody knows Marino, like 4 quarterbacks went before him. And so I guess the point I have is that the unpredictability of the quarterback position makes it hard to me to really start rolling the dice on people out there like Tua, because you just don't know. Even if he is healthy, you still know that he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. He's nothing but another potential prospect. And it's a lot easier to go draft one of the top rated offensive tackles, because usually those guys, even if they're not like Pro Bowl level, they're usually pretty solid players for your team. And so
at the same time, you just kind of have to be willing to roll the dice sometimes, Chad. I mean, we lost out on Matt Ryan because of Jake Long. We lost out on Drew Brees because of Dante Culpepper. Yeah. You're right. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But it's like
it's taking shots that make sense. And so right now for me is you draft Tua at 5. If you really like Tua and you feel comfortable with his medicals, you draft him at 5. And you got to be ready to just let that go if somebody takes him. If somebody jumps up to 3 or 4, let him, because you look at the Bears, look what they gave up to go up and get Trubisky, and now everybody wants to move on from Trubisky. And then after him, you get Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson going in the draft. And so to me, that your best bet is, I would almost rather see them take Herbert and Love both in first-round picks, so you have a better chance of one of those two doing really well in the NFL versus trading up, giving up 2 first-round picks to go get Tua. And I think right now, as Dolphin fans, we're not used to this position. Usually we had a lot of years where we had less than the Browns. We had like 6 draft picks instead of 7. We've got all these draft picks right now, and we've got all these extra first-round picks right now, which is really uncommon in the NFL. And these other teams right now, they desperately want the capital the Dolphins have. And so they're hoping, like, will the Dolphins trade a bunch of picks to move up? Will they trade a bunch of picks? How bad do they want Tua? And so there's so much like highlighting being done by the Lions and the Redskins and the Giants, because those teams have lots of needs right now, and they would love to get their hands on Miami's extra picks. And I'm just kind of along the lines like, look, we tore our team down to get all these draft assets. Do you really want to package all of that, like several of that anyway, into a package to go get Tua when he's injured and he's never even played it down in the league, and you have no idea what you're getting? Whereas if you just fill your roster out with all that extra talent, I think we're going to be a pretty solid football team. And I think that's where we need to get right now as a team is get a more complete team put together versus rolling the dice like that. But rolling dice at 5 again, yes. Trading up extra first-round picks to move up 2 or 3 slots, I think, is foolish. That's my personal opinion.
And honestly, man, I'm right there with you. I don't want to trade up. I don't want to trade up. And I don't think, and there are a lot of people out there who really they don't want to trade up either. But tomorrow's the start of the Combine. Things are going to start getting really, really interesting. So we'll be keeping an eye on that tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and call it. We've had our hour, and hopefully we'll have, by the time we have the next show, we'll get an idea of what everybody did in the 40, what everybody did in bench pressing, because film, yes, all that stuff is important, but we've seen so many times over the years that anybody who turns out to be an athletic superstar, GMs and teams get wowed by their just raw athletic ability and try to make an athlete into a football player. So we'll see how the boards suddenly change after the combine. So that's going to be interesting to see. Anybody in particular who's not a quarterback that you're looking at as far as realistic options for Miami, not like Isaiah Simmons. I talked to Alan Pupar from the Dolphins. He was telling me that he's got like this crush on Isaiah Simmons, and I don't disagree with him, but there's no way. I don't disagree with him, but there's no way he's going to Miami.
That to me, if that's what you do, if somebody jumps up and grabs a quarterback, just take Isaiah Simmons. The guy's ridiculous, but in today's NFL, getting Isaiah Simmons would be nice because he can cover really, really well as a linebacker, but he can also play linebacker really, really well in the run game, and so that's really rare. But so watching him in the combine will be fun just to see how big and fast he is. I think pay really close attention to the offensive linemen. To me, the most important drill for them is how many reps they can do on the bench. That's a really, really important drill. And then the shuttle drill, how quick they are. I don't get too caught up on what their 40 times are on the offensive line, but Miami has absolutely got to add offensive linemen in this draft. And so I would imagine their scouts are going to be paying really, really close attention because, like I said, there's several tackles in this draft right now. There's probably 2 or 3 that are considered Pro Bowl level right away tackles.
Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, Mackie Becton, later down the line, Josh Jones, Prince Tega Wanahogo. I don't know. Wanogo. Sure. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. Those are all really good prospects, though, is my point. And so Miami's more than likely going to be trying to get one of them. And so I think paying close attention to the tackle prospects is going to be a big thing for the Dolphins at the combine.
All right. So we'll see you all next time when the combine has concluded, and we're gonna see what the Dolphins. This is probably when we'll decide to be like, okay, now that the combine has happened, maybe what we should do is we should try to run like our own little mock draft, and we'll see what the Dolphins should do or something like that. Maybe we can do like a 3-round mock or something, because I mean, for both of us to do a 7-round mock would take like 3 hours. There's no way to be able to do that.
Yeah, we're politicking the Brawl Network right now to have each respective team, because there's if you're not familiar with the Brawl Network, there's Brawl.
Everybody's getting ready for the big launch. So.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not a Dolphins fan, there's the Brawl's practically every team anymore, from what I've seen. There's a Brawl cast for whatever team you're interested in following, and so
that would be awesome if we could make that happen.
Yeah,
every team just do a draft.
Be a very educated, much more than probably watching ESPN. You get a very educated.
ESPN doesn't know crap.
Right, but when you get Brawl networks where they're specializing each team and they know those teams' needs really well and those coaches pretty well, you get a pretty good guess of who they would try to take. And so it'd be a good way to see how those picks fall if we did it that way.
Well, here's hoping it happens. So thank you all so much for joining us. We are going to see you all next time. And combine's coming up. And then after that, free agency. The fun shall begin shortly.
Yeah, that'll be wild.
All right. So good night, everybody.